Welcome to the Welsh Yogi Podcast.
Okay, welcome to the Welsh Yogi Podcast. Another exciting episode with myself, Gopal, and Bhakta-rupa. How are you doing this today, Bhakta-rupa? Are you okay?
I'm really tired today, Gopal.
Are you?
No,
Why is that?
You are, aren't you?
I'm tired.
Yeah.
I'm always tired, though.
Yeah, I think we just jump into this one.
What I've been suffering with lately. I know we'll get. I know you
Yeah,
say
yeah,
we'll
okay,
jump
okay.
in,
We won't jump in.
but I think I have something called sleep apnea.
Yeah.
That's
You
what
need to
I
get a
diagnosed.
mask,
Yeah. How do you know?
because I know all about this thing. It's quite loud, though. It's like a sleep apnea mask. It helps you to breathe. It pumps.
How do you know about it? How do you
I used to listen to a podcast called The Church of What's Happening Now,
uh-huh.
and Joey Coco Diaz has sleep apnea.
Right.
He's like, he's like an American. Don't listen to that podcast if you want to protect your consciousness.
Okay. Because
But
I've been waking up in the night.
He used to
Like-
talk about his mask. He used to take it on the plane.
Yeah, I think I might have to get a mask. Apparently, I did some research. I'm speaking to the doctors on Monday, but my breathing is being very irregular at night time, and I'm waking up. If I'm sleeping, or even if I go for a nap, I wake up sort of choked, like gasping, like suffocating, and like that. And
Yeah, you have to lose weight.
Is it?
Not you, but just like people who have that.
That's probably it. Yeah.
Like I won't be. I've got a bit of something going on.
Yeah.
My breathing's very mouth heavy. I'm a mouth breather.
Mm-hmm.
But
We've all got our.
we've all got our crosses to bear.
Okay.
So, special announcement, everyone. This Friday, 6 till 8 p.m. at the Cardiff Uni Students, we've got a amazing, groundbreaking talk by a traveling Swami, Devamrita Swami, he's here in Wales for about 2 weeks, is it?
Yeah. Well, 10 days.
10 days.
10 days. Went to go pick him up from the airport the other day. He gave class this morning.
So amazing class, like.
Yeah, his classes are amazing. He really cares, you know. Like it's meeting people like this, which inspire you in spiritual life and Christian consciousness. Is being around them. They have this.
It's like electricity in the air. It's weird. It's really hard to describe.
It's just who they are is so attractive that it attracts you to Christian consciousness. It's and he always, you know, it's always striking how he really he's given his life to really help people.
Yeah.
He just mentioned something the other day. He was just talking about how lonely people are, and you could tell when he really felt it.
He said it to you in the car.
Yeah, he was saying how, you know, he just made the comment that people are so lonely, and just, you know,
It's
the
true.
way he said it, he had so much, you know, he really cares for everyone, you know.
It's true.
And seeing people like that who've been practicing Bhakti yoga, who've been practicing Christian consciousness, you know, properly for so many decades, and seeing, okay, yeah, it works. You know, I can see how it works in my own life, just on a little micro scale, and as I'm practicing. But seeing someone who's practiced it longer and more seriously makes you realize that, yeah, you know, I need to. It works, and I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah, for sure. I've noticed, like, just since he came, because last time he was here was just before lockdown, like 2.5 years ago, and just I could just see like a little difference in myself in those 2.5 years. Like it's weird. Like I'm seeing I don't know. I just feel more connected to what you're saying, and more when he did the kirtan, it was more powerful. I could see the steps forward I'm making being around you guys and T. Krishna and everything. So it's quite, for me, it's been quite a nice, like, oh yeah. Like,
You're gonna meet him? Are you gonna go meet him?
if I get the chance.
Yeah.
Last time I went to meet him, I didn't have any questions. This is very embarrassing.
You tell me this. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, and because you're meant to have a question. You go and see a Swami, you're supposed to go there with something to ask, you know.
You sit there, awkward silence.
Yeah, the first time I went there, we just had a lovely conversation about art and like creativity and bhakti. So I was expecting, okay, I'm gonna go and have a nice conversation. And I sat down, and he was just sat there, and he didn't say anything, and I didn't have anything to say, and it was like it was the longest, maybe 20 seconds of my entire life. It was like it was the heaviest heaviest silence ever, you know.
Mm.
I just kind of looked at him. I was like, you know, I probably should have prepared a question. And he looked at me just like, best way I could describe it is like an angry dragon.
You said this before. Yeah. You
Just
said
like,
when you walked in, you reminded you of like a dragon.
Yeah, he was,
sitting there.
you know, like a wise dragon. You know, like you imagine like a dragon that's wise. He's got a moustache, and he just knows. He's got so much wisdom. And you go into the dragon's cave, and you're supposed to ask the dragon a question, but you didn't have a question.
Yeah.
You know, and it was like that, and I was just like,
But you see the world is insane.
I was like, I probably should have had a question, Maharaj. And he just looked at me. He just looked out the side of his eyes. He's like, just like.
Well, they say questions are the answer.
Questions are the answer.
Okay,
but you might be wondering who is Devamrita Swami? Are you wondering that, Gopal?
Yes.
Well, I'll enlighten you. Devamrita Swami is an American-born educator, author, and sannyasi monk in the Krishna Bhakti tradition. For over 40 years, he's been traveling the world, sharing the teachings and lifestyle of Bhakti Yoga. Upon graduating from Yale University, he began reading and relishing the classic Bhakti texts translated by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada.
So I think he was the first ever black graduate in Yale University, African American.
Yeah.
And he went to Yale. He had a full scholarship. He went to the university, and because he wanted to find a solution to all of humanity's problems.
Yeah, that was his teachers or something said, "What's your goal from this degree?"
Yeah, that was what he wanted to find out.
Yeah.
And then, so they thought, okay, well, this is quite an admirable goal. So they gave it, he could go into any of the classes he wanted and study anything he wanted. So he went to, Yale University is one of the highest universities in the world. And he studied from, the top professors in all different subject matters, trying to find a solution to the world's problems. Really went into all the knowledge that's available to humankind. At least that was available in America. And it wasn't until he came across Srila Prabhupada in the Bhagavad Gita that he actually found the...
impressed. Sorry, this is what it leaves in them. So...
Oh, I talked about it, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, you lined that up nicely. So, until he started relishing the Bhakti text translated by Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Impressed by his impeccable erudition and saintliness, Devamrita Swami became his official student and a member of the worldwide Bhakti community. It's kind of nice.
He talks about he was with his flatmate watching the television, and he was like the almost, I don't know, amongst his friends, he was like the cool one, or he knew how to have a good time. Yeah. He always knew about the good music before everyone else knew about it. He knew the scenes or the places to go. Everyone like trusted him, and to have he was a quality enjoyer, trying to get pleasure from this world. And he remembers seeing the devotees on television, and he heard about their lifestyle and things like that. And he thought, they talk about pleasure and spiritual pleasure, but they should come to one of our parties, and I can show them what real pleasure is. That's what he used to think. But then he started to taste the deep pleasures of Bhakti Yoga, and then
I can relate to that.
Lifestyle.
I relate to that because when I was just getting into Krishna consciousness, I was getting into spirituality in quite like a big way, and watching loads of videos on YouTube. You
used to be a big fan of the Mormons, didn't you? You used to be a Mormon.
Well, not really. I
went
there. I liked the Mormons.
What was that YouTube program you were watching? That was like all about family and stuff.
Oh no, that was just from a young age. I used to listen to like they're called Shaitards, Shay Carl and the Shaitards, and they're just like they were the first ever like daily vloggers family. Like making a vlog every day. Because I was on YouTube when it first. 2007. 2006. I started on going on YouTube, and I was only like 12 or 13. But I used to watch these guys every day, and they were Mormons, and they just sort of drip fed me Mormon philosophy over my life. Yeah. And then it like implanted this like deep desire to have like a massive family. Right. Like, and now I'm a monk, and I'm like, oh, wait a second, what is this? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and then I sort of like did some reflecting on like, where's this coming from? And I remembered, oh yeah, I used to listen to those Mormons a lot, you know, like a lot every day. And then I ended up going to, just by some random, I was on like a spiritual quest traveling across America, and I ended up going to Salt Lake City, Temple Square, like the headquarters of the Mormons. And I went to the Music and Spoken Word, which is their like their Sunday service, which they broadcast all over the world. And it was so powerful, because the life I was living before, the guy was proper on drugs, to be fair. Like, so the contrast was massive. But yeah, so there was that Mormon influence. But you were talking about Devamrita Maharaj thinking he knows how to enjoy or a party or like I remember, because I was getting into spirituality, and if you go on YouTube, you'll find a lot of stuff that says like taking psychedelic substances, like gives you spiritual insights, helps you see more, learn more about reality and stuff like that. And I remember I started seeing the monks. It was like very synchronous, but I started seeing the monks everywhere, you know, everywhere I would go. I'm like jumping into the story a little bit, but like, yeah, I'd see Gopi Ramana, who's if you've ever met Gopi Ramana, he's very quiet, very like silent, like kind of what you'd think.
He's a humble soul.
Humble soul, yeah. Like he just does all the cleaning. You don't really see him. He's just kind of humble, you know. And I remember I was just this crazy, like, psychedelic, yeah, I'm spiritual. And I bumped into Gopi Ramana, and I was like, oh, mate, you think you're spiritual? Come with me up the mountain. We'll take some psychedelic mushrooms, and I'll show you the real truth of spirituality. And he was just, like, humbly like, no. But, like, so it's kind of like this conception, like you already know it before you know what actually is in these texts. Something way beyond any psychedelic experience I've ever had. Like,
because you're still looking at everything materially,
exactly,
from the outside looking in.
Yeah.
Srila Prabhupada used to give the example: you have a jar of honey with a lid, and you're trying to taste the honey by licking the outside of the jar.
Exactly. Yeah.
You have to actually open and really, really tuck in.
What would you say to that? I guess we're talking about this, but what would you say to people who are like, who say that like a psychedelic experience is spiritual?
I would, in one sense, I mean, spiritual should be defined. I mean, it's such a word that gets thrown around a lot. But you're taking a material substance and you're having a material experience. And I think, and also, it's beyond, use the word spiritual, but really what we're all looking for is a profound, ecstatic experience of truth and pleasure. So even if you take out the word spiritual material, what's the highest experience that the living being can have? And that is in Krishna consciousness. And if someone who takes drugs, for example, says, well, this is the highest experience that the living being can have, well, unless you've actually properly tried Krishna consciousness, you aren't equipped or qualified to make that statement.
Yeah.
So you have to at least try Krishna consciousness, go deep in the art, science, and culture of Bhakti Yoga, and then you can make a balanced decision in life, and then you can say, okay, I've tried this, and this is the best experience.
So it leads me straight into the next part of this description of Devamrita Swami.
Okay.
It says he's adept at applying the spiritual science, and he encourages others to enter the laboratory and perform the Krishna experiment, which enables us to fully realize our non-material identity and ultimate connection. So it's like that, isn't it? It's like what you just said. Like, it really takes that. If it's an experiment. You can actually practice. You can add little pieces to your life from the Bhakti text, from the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and just experiment. And with an experiment, you have a hypothesis. You do the test, and then you get a result, and then you can see if they match.
Yeah, and if you haven't done the experiment, then you can't. You're not an authority on it. If you haven't tasted something, you can't say whether it's good or bad, or you can only go by the testimony of those who have tasted it if you haven't tasted it yourself.
Yeah.
And those who have tasted Krishna consciousness all attest to the much superior flavors one can get. And then when you meet people like Devamrita Maharaj, who can even can attest even further from going deeper and deeper into Krishna consciousness, then that's also what makes them authoritative on pleasure and happiness. Like the talk he's giving on Friday, which everyone is welcome to attend, is on sustainable happiness. That happiness that doesn't end and doesn't rely on sparse material resources, but one can explore deeply and forever, and it always increases. This is, a lot of us who have come to Bhakti Yoga, we've tried all the other things, we tried all the material things that people normally look for in order to have a good time.
Sex, drug, and rock and roll.
Yeah. So, we've all decided that it's actually, it's on a different dimension completely to what you'll experience in spiritual life. It's not even it's not like a scale of, okay, this is how much pleasure I get from this, but spiritual life's, a few notches up. It's such a different quality that it's in a completely different dimension altogether. It's just above the whole petty game of materialism that most of us are unaware that we're playing. Yeah,
I mean, I was searching for this truth, for this connection, for this meaning of life through your psychedelics or through whatever it is, But then I listened to the boys, and they're like, "Nah, you can get a higher experience if you just stop taking drugs altogether," So I was like, okay, I try it, and I could say for sure, since just in the past not that long, 4 years, I've had ridiculously profound internal experiences and senses of connection and real revelation of the truths of reality, and they come in such a clear and intuitive way. In terms by intuitive, I mean customized way, a personal way. The truth comes in a way that it makes sense to you so perfectly. It's not just this is the truth, you will learn it. It's revealing it gradually in such a perfect mystical way. You get me?
Yeah, it's because it's genuine realization. It's the truth.
Yeah.
So the truth is so, powerful, so illuminating. I remember one of my things was, because I was looking for spiritual life, and when I used to go off on drugs or whatever, I used to use that to try and, meditate on God or whatever. But I remember reading Prabhupada's books, and I remember thinking that, okay, because I always thought, okay, there is a mission of life. There's got to be a purpose.
Yeah.
And if this human purpose and mission is, for self-realization, and we should, attain higher levels of consciousness, then it should be, it should be built in. The game shouldn't be unfair in the sense that if I rely on drugs, then I'm relying on some sort of external resource that's sometimes there and sometimes not there. And if I'm relying on some external limited resource to actually get what should be my birthright in terms of spiritual advancement, then is it accurate? Has God created this game so that this whole world, so you have to have some material substance that's limited, and not everyone has access to it. So vital for you to actually advance spiritually.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense as well, because the psychedelic experience generally gives you more questions than answers. There's too many moving parts involved. Your mind has to figure out what you just experienced. Most people don't. They have an experience and they're like, what the hell was that? And then the mind just goes into overdrive. Okay, this must have meant that, and this is the meaning of that. And we come up with our own kind of ideas, but it's all on the made up mental level. There's no real it feels like epiphanies. It feels like you're getting some truth, but then once you sober up, it's what have you brought back with you?
And you're just trying to think about, trying to read some meanings into it, and
it's the same as a dream. What use is a dream?
And what we were when we were going through Sheshapanishad, one of the fundamental sort of principles is that through your material senses, which are imperfect, you can't get perfect knowledge. If I look at the sun, I think, it looks about this big, it looks about the size of my fist. But actually, we know by hearing from authorities that, okay, no, the sun's absolutely huge. Yeah. So just with our own limited senses, we can't try and work this world out. So when you're relying on, your own material experiences, then it's also it is also limiting.
Yeah. You think how small we are, like, when just go up in a plane and look down at a house, it's like a tiny dot. And like if we look from our perspective down at an ant, it's just a tiny dot. And if that ant was starting to talk to me about the Welsh Yogi podcast or about anything, like, it's just beyond its pay grade. It can't understand anything. It's just a little tiny ant.
Yeah.
So
It goes into what we talked about last podcast, doesn't it? How limited can't understand the unlimited by its own effort, but the unlimited has the,
yeah, it can
reserves the right to let itself,
Yeah, it's powerful. So Devamrita Swami has authored this book, Hiding in Natural Happiness, which is you can get off us actually. We've got quite a few copies left. So if you haven't read it yet, shoot over a little message.
But the copies we have left, I think they're the only ones left in the UK.
Yeah, last one's in the country. We've got about 100 or 200 left.
Yeah, they'll go quickly.
Yeah, the boys love giving them out.
We'll have them on at the talk. We'll have some saved though on sale or whatever. But
that's a good point.
Yeah, we should have a whole book table, everything set up.
So there's the books. He's also got one called Searching for Vedic India. Yeah, which is kind of, I haven't read it, but I've heard good things.
He gives a nice lecture on it in Hungary actually. Some like series of lectures, I think. But yeah, he did a lot of research for that book. Basically searching for Vedic India. So he goes into he goes into the pyramids and even goes into like psychic phenomena, and he really investigates all the different evidence that correlates with what you'll find in the ancient wisdom Vedic texts of India. And the stuff he pulls out is pretty phenomenal.
Interesting stuff, like I like all that stuff. Pyramids, were they made by mantras, and what were they for? And
he gives all, like you tell, he's done his research. He gives, when he talks about things like that, he doesn't necessarily, I don't think, it doesn't, he's just offering the evidence. He's just putting all the evidence on the table, and he has there's these, when you're talking about the pyramids, for example, there's these like written diaries of, these ancient Egyptian priests moving stones by mantras. Yeah. And even more recently, you've got these travelers who saw these Buddhist monks, chant these mantras or strike. I think they were striking some drum, and they would cause like these rocks on the mountain to, move and float and stuff. It's quite far out, but he also talks about extraterrestrials and, but he talks a lot about archaeology as well.
It's interesting because the Vedas they offer a lot of answers to these kind of, they seem like out there perspectives or non-mainstream perspectives. Like,
that's the thing, is the Vedic paradigm. At the minute, we have a certain, there's a worldview that's most common that, accounts for a lot of what we see in this world, but you still have anomalies. Like, there is documented psychic behavior. There is documented, extraterrestrial activity, as you were. There is, documented sort of like,
more and more documented as well, the extraterrestrials. Isn't it like some American government just released, not just, but recently released a load of files? And
yeah, it's you have...
I'm not a UFO expert, to be honest, but...
Yeah, I mean, the British government, actually officially, their official sort of stance is, yes, we are being visited by...
extraterrestrials.
Yeah, unknown sort of...
so intelligence. Yeah, because...
But what I was going on to say was... is that because of these anomalous stuff, the paradigm doesn't actually incorporate it. What we have in today's sort of world is the most. So then you just have to put all this evidence, like out of body experiences, for example, or I think people remembering their past lives, and you have to just put it to one side. Yeah. But the Vedic paradigm, what the East offers, especially in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, is a paradigm that does accommodate everything. Yeah. It accommodates, all the evidence. For example, in order to, they're putting back the date all the time when they say human beings first appeared on this world. There's human skeletons that have been found in rock that's, millions and millions, if not hundreds of millions of years old. And because there's so little of that evidence, it just has to be put to one side because it just doesn't tally up with everything else that we understand.
Like the theory of evolution.
Yeah, or even just how long you think human beings had access to tools and things like that, and or even human beings were around. But when this evidence just builds up so much in the closet, it all just spills out. Then you're forced to get a new paradigm or change the way that you see the world.
Why is it that the paradigm doesn't want to change? Like, what's the interest in the kind of mainstream idea changing, staying as it is?
I mean, I've heard it's actually quite very hard for a worldview paradigm to actually change, especially when you have these, there's actually only very few sort of people at the top in terms of scientists that sort of filter the information that the public sort of understand to be real or not. So, I mean, they say, scientists actually, they like to be proven wrong. They like to have their theories tested, but they just have to, you have to show them evidence that really, for example, there was a forum of scientists, and then they were discussing about how long human beings had been on the planet. And then one archaeologist said, okay, what about this Castanedolo skeleton? This skeleton, you can Google it if you want. Castanedolo skeleton.
Spell it out.
I'm going to try and type it in Google. I don't know how we got onto this. I was just going to talk about how the Vedic paradigm actually accommodates all of these things. But it is quite...
I think it's important to discuss these things because there are people out there that are looking for these kinds of answers.
Okay, well, we should... Anyway, it's Castanedolo. There we go. So, yes, Castenedolo. Skeleton. So, but this is just actually just one example of this sort of archaeology that has to be put to one side because it's so far out, But anyway, so this, they talk, and they said, yeah, that is a problem. These scientists admitted, this skeleton is a big problem.
What is the skeleton?
It's a skeleton. It was a human skeleton that was found in rock. That was, I'm just trying to look online now to see.
A couple of million years old or something?
More than a couple, like millions and millions of years old. Let's see. I mean, there's even there's one. I think he was a coal miner, and in coal he found this golden. It was we're probably aware of it. It was like an Archiman cup. You have when we do with the deities, you have a little sort of sculpted spoon that has a picture of a deity. Not a picture, but
it's like a cup that you'd use in a ceremony or a sacrifice. Or
so they found things like that. That was in rock. That is also meant to be.
So yeah, the skeleton's a problem and the cup. What point are you making there?
Well, that. Okay, so that was millions and millions. This Castanedolo skeleton actually is, it says 50,000 to 75,000 years old. It was found in Upper Paleothonic, but this is actually it was dated older than that. Okay. But anyway, we'll do another podcast where I'll get all my...
Get the notes together.
Facts. But basically, I was just making the point that they like to be, they do like to be sort of have their theories tested, and in this particular debate, they had to say this evidence, it doesn't make sense how human beings could be around so long ago.
Yeah. According to the paradigm,
yeah. Okay. But the Vedic paradigm does allow for all this evidence. And when I was speaking to a Kandadi who we'll have on this, he's like a professor of consciousness, and he has looked at I asked him, when you're looking at consciousness, is there any evidence that you have found that actually goes against or doesn't support the fact that consciousness is something different to the material elements? And he said no. He said all evidence that I found all supports or can be accommodated in the theory that consciousness is not a product of material combination. It's not a product of chemicals, and there's absolutely no evidence. There is no evidence that consciousness is a product of any reactions happening in the brain. There is none.
Yeah.
People just think that. People think, brain consciousness, it comes from the brain. Where's the evidence for that? There's absolutely none. They call it the hard problem in science. What is consciousness? Where does it come from? How does it get produced?
Yeah, it seems like it's coming from the brain because that's where a lot of the engine work's going, isn't it? Like the computational power. I'll show you this. Gareth, you know Gareth?
Yeah.
He sent me this article. Interesting. This is like a modern science article. And it says, of course, AI NPCs can be consciousness and have feelings, says techno philosopher.
Yeah,
And he sent me this as like some kind, like you just said, this is nuts. Like this is a conception of the modern kind of scientific paradigm, is that artificial intelligence has consciousness and feelings, but there's not any evidence for that.
we've really, that's the thing, most people don't. It actually takes a bit of time to explain, to get most people to actually understand what we mean when we say consciousness.
Yeah. That's why we need a Kandidi on there.
Yeah. I mean, he's, because you have, there are things going on in the brain, but it's the experiencer, it's the qualia, it's the person who's actually experiencing all the combinations that are happening in the brain and the mind.
Yeah. I always describe it like right now, my eyes are like sensors that are gathering the information, right? Like, and the ears of the person listening, they're gathering this information, and it's been sucked through the ear hole and it's been filtered through the mind. So whatever we hear, we kind of filter it through our own previous experiences and previous conceptions. Maybe you're a scientist and you're thinking these guys are absolutely nuts, like, or maybe you're so like whatever perspective you have, you filter that sound vibration, but then through that filter you're the person who's experiencing the sound, something like that. So that the quality, you say qualia or qualia, that's an interesting word.
You have they say the redness of red, or you have, like, this microphone at the minute is picking up this sound, but it's not experiencing the sound. It's
exactly.
not, I use the example like in Terminator films. You see the way the machine sees, and it says, okay, this is your target or whatever. This is Sarah Connors. This is your target or whatever. But if a computer doesn't have that, it doesn't need some sort of interface, because it's just the sense and response.
Just the processes.
Sense response. Yeah, it's just the processes acting. And even when it seems like, okay, I'm having a conversation with a robot, there's no consciousness there, which means there's no experiencer. It's just, input and output.
Cold processes. And the consciousness
the illusion of consciousness.
The consciousness is the feeling element. Is the like without consciousness, there's no
the awareness. Like what's that philosopher say? I think, therefore I am. So I know that I exist. So this actual understanding of the conception, I exist as an, I'm experiencing things. It's not just the fact of like, pinch me and there's pain there. So like a robot, for example, you pinch, pain, there'll be pain there, and you could even, artificially, manufacture the results of pain. You could even make it go, ow, that hurt. You can program it in such a way so it speaks.
So when pinch, then
exactly, and there's so many things in our bodies that are like that. So many different reactions, but the experience of being pinched and the reactions and how that all feels. That's consciousness. It's like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, it's like, the body is illuminated by consciousness. And wherever you see life, wherever you see growth, then that means there's consciousness present, the spirit soul. Like when we did this exercise the other day we were looking in the Bhagavad Gita, we went into groups. And one of our
retreat, our back to yoga retreat, which was awesome.
It went really well.
Shout out everyone who was there.
And there was one question. Okay, is the soul? How can you prove there's a soul? And I was thinking, well, the question isn't so much the soul is you. If you just take away the word soul for a minute, because like the Sanskrit word is atma, which means the self. So if you just you exist. Everyone can honestly, if they're honest, they can say, yeah, I do exist. I'm listening to this podcast right now, therefore I exist. So if we can just say, okay, that's what we refer to when we say soul, is you as an existing person, an existing element of consciousness. Now, the question is, are you material in terms of, are you just a random product of a combination of matter, or are you spiritual? So the soul exists. The question is whether it's material or spiritual. Does that make sense? The Atma exists. It's just whether...
Like it's actually profound. Like with some introspection, you can blow your own mind with it, because I remember being a child. I remember witnessing. Like I remember being the witness of childhood experiences. I never really think about the moments when I was a young child. It honestly feels like I'm the same person, although the body is completely different. Although like the brain is completely different. Although like every 7 years,
that's the thing. Yeah.
Every cell changes. But I honestly feel like, when I remember my 4th birthday party and blowing out the candles. But I remember that was me doing. Like I was there.
Yeah, and this is what like Krishna offers in the Bhagavad Gita. These are the first steps in spiritual life, and he uses that example. Denusminyatadehe komarum yovaramjara. Don't you remember being you're the same experiencer. Your body's changed. Your brain has changed. Your thoughts have changed. Your ideas have changed. The conception of who you are has changed.
But it's still you.
You're still that experiencer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because people say, well, I've changed my views. I've changed my political views or my religious views. Okay, yeah, but you have changed those views. You had those views before, and you have these views now. You were in that body, now you're in this body. You had this experience, now you have this experience. So what's that you? Are you gonna? Who are you?
Yeah.
If I'm gonna tag, well, I'm this body. Well, you're not the body, because you were in a different body before when you remembered that. So which part of your body is you? Is your heart or your brain, or all these things have changed. So who are you? And in today's education system, you're not taught who you are.
Yeah.
So this should be the first, and this is what Krishna is. This is the first lesson in life, is understanding who are you.
And Krishna says that there was never a time when I didn't exist or you didn't exist.
Yeah.
No, anyone on this battlefield didn't exist. And I like with some introspection, like I say, like if you actually take this point, you're not the body, and you actually think about it quite often. Like when you're out in nature, or when you're going through some experience, and just like, wait, just take a second, just like, okay, I'm conscious now, and enough of that. Like I genuinely feel like I have. This isn't my first life. Like I feel like I have existed longer than just this life. It doesn't feel like life started at the beginning of the life. That's just all I can remember for now. But I feel like that point of consciousness is eternal. I haven't really got anything more to say than a feeling, which isn't good evidence, but like...
Well, it's like Devamrita Swami said in class this morning, isn't it? That a lot of people do believe, there's a vast, in terms of your own existence, there's a vast expanse of nothingness. And then, poof, now you're alive and you have some chance to experience, and then when you die, poof, there's another eternal vast of expanse of nothingness.
Yeah.
But still, anyone, even if they would prescribe to that philosophy, still they live their life because they know how important it is to try and be happy in this tiny space of existence that they've got. But unfortunately, they don't know that no, this isn't the first life you've lived, and it won't be the last.
Yeah, and action-reaction, the law of karma.
Yeah.
So if you do heavy stuff, you get heavy reactions. Like you do good things, but like...
You should carry on your development in this life to actually, complete the mission of human life. Because, if one can at least theoretically understand, I am I am the same person, but my body's changed. Then you start to, like Krishna also explains in Bhagavad Gita, you see what's real and what's not real, or what's temporary and what's eternal. So if my body has been, created and destroyed regularly throughout this life, then I can see the quality of matter is that it's temporary. But the quality, at least so far in my own experience of myself as a conscious living being, is that I am unaffected by the changes of this body and the temporary nature of this world. My own... I still feel like this exactly the same person as I was when I was younger, but as I'm getting older, my body is getting more limited. But my sense of me being a conscious being is unchanged. Therefore, if you just extrapolate that into the future, then you see when this body's finished, the consciousness still isn't affected by the body finishing, because the body's always being created and destroyed regularly. Your cells are always dying and growing back, and
It's interesting.
So
You
the
always,
soul's eternal.
whenever you meet old people on the street, like they say, you know, I feel young. Like I feel like the same person I was when I was 20.
Cause it's the same soul.
Yeah.
But the body is more limited. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like the cars, you can drive the car, but if the car's, you know, wheels falling off and it's, you know, it's done too many miles and the engine's wrecked, and then externally it'll be like, oh yeah, that person, you know, the car's not working at all. But inside you're the same as someone else driving another car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is why there's so much emphasis put on, like, start doing some spiritual life early, whilst you can, you know, because like, when you're young, it feels like, because you've got a nice car, your body's working, all of the inputs are pretty good. It feels like, oh yeah, this ain't so bad. Maybe I don't need to think about spiritual life.
Yeah, you're under the illusion that, okay, this body's, you know, I can enjoy this world, basically.
I'm gonna enjoy it.
Yeah, but it's a trap. You know, it's a complete trick. It's a complete trap.
Because then you get to the age of 70, you've got a lot of memories or half memories of nights out or whatever you did when you were young. And, oh, they were the good old days. But you just, because I meet loads of old people on the street and they're frustrated because it's like, I can't do that stuff anymore. Now I feel trapped in this old person's body. My sort of capacity to enjoy this body is a lot more limited than it used to be. It's a suffering condition, you know.
And what was the point?
But then you meet people who have been practicing spiritual life their whole life. Like Devamrita Swami is like 70-something, maybe 71, 72. And he's so alive and so happy and so effulgent and vivid and...
Yeah, he's someone he's really like experiencing life. You know, most people when they get old and I'm retired now, but what do I do? You know, now I'll just waste time until I die. I'll try and go on a few cruises, try and go see, you know, a few like little shows, you know.
Go on a bus coach trip.
And then you just, so then you just sort of try and sort of, you know, you waste time basically until you, but there's many people now who are Christian, when you're spiritual, Krishna conscious and you get old, then you know what to do. Okay, I'm going to go deeper and deeper into my spiritual life and my relationship with Krishna and his devotees until I eventually leave this world and move on to my next destination. And you have this thing of there's these like top regrets that people have when they're leaving this world. Oh, I wish I'd, you know, enjoyed more, wish I didn't work so much, wish I spent more time with my loved ones. There's like this whole list of like the top things people regret. But the Krishna conscious person, they don't regret anything, or at least they don't regret anything material. They Krishna says neha pakrama nasrasti vidyo svidyate sva alpamapi dharmasya chayate matobhayat. Any advancement made in spiritual life is never lost, and it goes with you in your next life and your next life. Yeah. So you want to really invest, make the worthwhile investment of investing time, at least some time and energy in our spiritual development, because time and energy invested in material acquisitions or material progress is guaranteed to go when this body's finished.
Yeah, and I mean, the more you get into like Bhakti yoga and Krishna consciousness, like, because it does material. When you hear that anything invested in material is a waste, you think, wait, what does that mean? Like, does that mean me going to my job, doing my job, I'm wasting my time, or me spending time with my kids, I'm wasting my time because these are material things all related to the body? But actually, like, Krishna consciousness is about changing our consciousness so that those material things become spiritualized, because ultimately everything is the spiritual energy of Krishna, either superior or inferior, you know. It's about transferring.
Yeah, it's like using the energy properly. You know, it's the same electricity that's coming out of the plug. You can either plug it into the fridge, it can cool things down. You plug it into a radio, it heats things up. Same energy, it's just how you use it.
Yeah.
So when we say using the energy for materialism, what you mean is you have an overarching material goal and you have this, you know, material energy, and you're trying to use it in order to basically satisfy ourselves in some sort of selfish desire, or trying to make ourselves happy, or in a selfish way or an exploiting way. But when we understand that, okay, all these energies are actually connected and they belong to Krishna, and we engage the energies properly for Krishna's pleasure, then we're acting spiritually, and then it's not wasted. Like Devamrita Maharaj was saying this morning, that, you know, we're not just into like, you know, it's not just about religion or faith. but where Hrishikesh is saving Bhakti Uchite, he was saying that we're trying to engage our senses in the service of the supreme proprietor of the senses, Krishna, and therefore maximize our lives in that way.
It's pretty cool. So,
but Devamrita Maharaj is far more deep and advanced than myself and most of the. He's if you have the opportunity to go meet him and ask him questions that you may have, or even get some of his time, or I remember the first time I met with him, I was so confused about my life or my spiritual life, everything. My whole life was, and I thought, okay, this person is meant to be a holy person. He's meant to be a representative of God. I'm just going to ask him the questions, ask him about my life, and I said to myself, whatever he says for me to do, I'm just going to do it, because I was so lost, And he told me what to do, and I'm eternally grateful for him for that.
It's amazing. It's a rare opportunity.
Oh, thank you. So go see Devamrita Maharaj on Friday.
On Friday, get a ticket. How can you get a ticket, Gopal?
Go onto our Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah, go on T Krishna social media. T Krishna Cymru.
Yeah,
and T Krishna Cymru.
Book your ticket in advance.
Yeah, there's limited spaces, so you better get in there quick.
Yeah, it's in the student union, one of the student lecture halls, I think. So,
£10 for normals, £8 for students.
It's cheaper. It's like a pound or two cheaper than on the flyer.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's not. I think it's.
So it's less than that.
Yeah.
So it's £8 for normals, £6 for students.
I think so. Yeah.
Something along those lines.
So you're getting a bargain. And if you go there and if you
you can get a signed book.
Yeah.
Sorry.
If you see me or Bhakta-rupa and you say that, you came because of the Welsh Yogi podcast, then you get a free Hiding Natural Happiness
freebie. It's exclusives for the listeners.
Thank you.
But thanks for listening, everyone. There's some interesting topics there which could be explored a lot. Especially that I like all this AI stuff. Like that idea that I know we've already said we've finished, but like that idea that AI is conscious.
We had this computer programmer. He gave the example. He said, look, you can't get consciousness just from artificial intelligence, he was saying. And he gave the example, like if you could build a computer just with pipes and water flowing.
Yeah.
He said it would be so huge you couldn't even, but theoretically you could do it.
Yeah.
But you'd still only have the pipes and the water. That's all there is. So there's just like mechanisms. You won't get this other thing will just come out out of nowhere. The experiencer or conscious poop. There's no in this little I've got a tiny little framework of a computer here, but if I keep making it more and more complex, then out of so much complexity, then all of a sudden it's going to be complex enough for consciousness just to magically poof into the equation. It doesn't work like that. It's like saying like, oh yeah, it's like they say the God in the gaps. It's just saying, oh, God did it. So it's like, oh yeah, we will get consciousness. It'll become so, we'll create something that's so complex that poof, consciousness will just come. It's like, no. What creates that consciousness? What creates the experiencer? So if you just have pipes and water, and all of a sudden you get another element in there that we call consciousness, where does that come from? You can't just say that, oh yeah, if I get enough pipes and water together, then all of a sudden then I'm going to get, gold and mercury are just going to pop up.
Yeah, the most complex video game AI possible wouldn't do anything unless you switch to PlayStation on. Do you know what I mean? Like, you need someone to be in there that's making that AI do stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then when it's doing stuff, it's just reacting to the way. Anyway.
Yeah, and it's not experience. It's not they're NPCs, non-playable characters, or whatever. There's no. It's like there was a film out recently that I think was based on Free Guy. Have you seen the posters for that? No. I think that's meant to be like in a virtual world, and then these virtual characters, they start achieving consciousness. It's like in Grand Theft Auto, you got the guy who's just, you got these NPC computer characters, and all of a sudden they start being aware that I exist.
They'd all start freaking out, wouldn't they?
Yeah, well, yeah. I think this is what. So this awareness of I exist isn't just like achieved by making more and more complexity because the tools, there's just, it's a different element altogether. It's altogether a different element than just it's not just a matter of complexity to produce it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, reminds me of The Matrix.
That's for another time.
Is it?
I guess, yeah.
Okay. We got it. Sorry, I'm trying to drag it on. Hey.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks
everyone.
for listening, everyone.
Lots
Hare
of love.
Krishna. Come to the thing, please come.
We'll see you there. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Madhya Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta-rupa